"You need to prove you're worthy," said Camilla, her tone sharper than the crystal glasses clinking on the marble table. I froze. My fiancée Alara just nodded with that small, tipsy smile, the one that used to make me melt. But tonight, it felt like betrayal. We were at Le Jardin et Carlotte, the most opulent spot in the city for high society dining, where chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, and the scent of rare orchids and amber perfumes mingled with the aroma of saffron and truffle. I, 34, had always been pragmatic, a logistics manager who thrived on precision and reason. Alara, 31, a rising star in event curation, lived in a world of aesthetics, mood boards, and Instagrammable perfection. In hindsight, this was a glaring warning sign. Her friends Camilla, 32, Sabine, 30, and Lysandra, 31, were embodiments of entitlement, draped in designer scarves and bespoke heels. They were the kind of people who drank champagne like water and measured worth by the shimmer of a wristwatch or the make of a car. I had endured their subtle mockery for years, pretending it was charm or harmless teasing, all for Alara. I had even splurged on the engagement ring, a 2.5-carat flawless lab-grown diamond set in rose gold. Costing me a fortune, I scrimped and planned for months to gather. Alara perhaps adored showing it, like it was a trophy on display. The evening began with laughter, clinking glasses, and a parade of extravagant dishes. Truffle-infused oysters, gold-dusted macarons, exotic cocktails served with dry ice smoke. I sipped my simple aged whiskey, observing the performance. Alara was radiant but unrecognizable. She wasn't with me, she was performing for them. 2 hours in, the plates were cleared, and a quiet tension settled like fog. Camilla slid the bill toward me. My heart sank. "It's $832 for 5, she said, voice calm but laced with expectation. My mind raced. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a test, a gauntlet designed to measure my worthiness through my wallet. Alara's giggle did nothing to ease my dread. "Don't take it so seriously," she murmured, brushing my arm with a casual familiarity that made my stomach twist. But I could see the truth in her eyes. She was complicit. Camilla leaned closer, her perfume intoxicating and assertive, explaining that as my fiancé's closest circle, they needed to ensure I could provide, that I could handle life with her. The numbers stared back at me. $832, an absurd sum for a dinner I didn't even choose. My rational mind clicked into overdrive. 40 years of holidays, birthdays, vacations, every interaction with these people could become a trial. And I, for some reason, had agreed to this absurd charade. I stood. "All right," I said, voice calm. But I wasn't going to pay for their extravagance. Not like this. I walked past the stunned group, past the exhausted waiters still holding our orders, and went straight to the bar. "Just my drink," I told him, and with $18, I settled my tab and left. The cold night air hit me as I walked to my car. My phone remained silent for 20 minutes, then lit up with a flurry of frantic voicemails from a Laraponic disbelief and high-pitched urgency all rolled into one. They hadn't expected me to actually leave. And in that moment, clarity replaced the adrenaline-fueled humiliation. This wasn't just about money. It was about character, and I had just drawn the line. I drove to my apartment, heart still hammering, but mind oddly lucid. The familiar streets, usually comforting, now felt alien, reflecting the absurdity of what had just occurred. I sat in my car, staring at the leather-wrapped steering wheel, replaying the night in slow motion. Ilara's giggles, Camilla's imperious stare. The flashing crystal of Chandelier's everything was etched in my mind like a tableau of entitlement. It hit me fully. For years of my life, all invested, had led to this bizarre ultimatum. And yet, in the clarity of solitude, I realized I hadn't lost anything but my patience. I packed a duffel bag with essentials, work clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and the engagement ring receipt, along with the GIA certification. Every item was a tether to the life I had built, a life I wouldn't surrender to manipulation disguised as celebration. I drove to my brother's apartment, where the familiar comfort of familial support offered a reprieve from the chaos. Mark, tall and stoic as always, poured me a beer without a word. The silent solidarity more comforting than any counsel could have been. The next morning, my phone exploded. 30+ missed calls from Ilara, Camilla, Sabine, and Lysandra. A wall of texts, desperate, accusatory, manipulative, converging into a digital storm I let pass unread. Their outrage was palpable even through the cold, glowing screen. Ilara insisted I was being unreasonable, that the evening was a joke, a harmless tradition. I read the messages twice, then thrice, marveling at the audacity. To them, my refusal to bankroll their performance was catastrophic. To me, it was survival of sanity. By mid-afternoon, the motive became clearer. Ilara, perhaps panicking at the financial implications, declared in a text she was keeping the ring as compensation for the humiliation I supposedly inflicted. My stomach turned. Theft disguised as a petty power place had crossed a line. Calmly, I began drafting a methodical plan. First, notifying my insurance company about the ring, documenting its value and her admitted intent in writing. Second, sending a final, formal text to Ilara, outlining the conditional nature of the engagement gift and that her claim to keep it as payment constituted theft. Every action measured, precise, devoid of emotion, as if the rational part of me, the logistics expert, had taken full control. Hours passed in a tense haze. Then, the unexpected, a call from the police. Ilara had claimed financial abuse, but the officer on the line, professional and unflappable, confirmed the apartment and finances were fully under my control. Nothing could force entry. Nothing could coerce me into relinquishing what was legally mine. Relief mingled with incredulity. Her panic, her attempts to manipulate, her insistence on proving worth it, all reflected her inability to grasp that life. Character and respect cannot be quantified by a dinner bill or a display of wealth. That night, alone at my brother's kitchen table, I allowed a small smile. Strategy had triumphed over chaos. Patience over entitlement. Evenings in the city usually carried the scent of blooming wisteria and roasted chestnuts, a comforting backdrop to ordinary life. Tonight, though every fragrant whiff reminded me of Ilara's laughter, of the performative perfection that had almost cost me everything, and yet, in the quiet of a borrowed apartment, I felt the first true clarity in years. I wasn't just walking away from a dinner or an $832. Qley was stepping out of a lifetime of testing, of judgment, of expectation masquerading as tradition. The weight lifted slightly, replaced by a resolute calm. The future, my future, would not be dictated by those who measured love with numbers. Saturday morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen of my brother's apartment, sharp and unforgiving, mirroring the aftermath of the previous night. My phone, once silent, now buzzed relentlessly. Messages from Ilara shifted from frantic pleading to icy accusations, each one more absurd than the last. She insisted I was overreacting, that the $832 test was just a joke, and that I had humiliated her in front of her friends. Camilla, Sabine, and Lysandra chimed in, projecting outrage with the precision of a coordinated assault. I let the notifications pile up, my thumb hovering but never replying. Strategy required patience, and patience required silence. I opened my laptop and began cataloging everything. Screenshots of messages, copies of the engagement ring certification, receipts, time. Every word she had written, every insistence she made about proving worth became a shield and a sword. The absurdity was staggering for years of relationship milestones. Engagement, planning, and shared dreams reduced to a cruel test over dinner. I realized something vital. This wasn't about money or even pride, it was about control. And I would not yield. By late morning, I sent a carefully worded message. Ilara, the engagement ring is a conditional gift given in contemplation of marriage. Your text stating you are keeping it as payment is an admission of theft. I have contacted my insurance company. You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to return it in person. If you fail, a police report will be filed for felony theft. I hit send, feeling a curious mixture of anger and relief. Legal clarity often brings clarity of the heart, and in that moment, my anger was tempered by precision. Hours later, the consequences of her entitlement began to unfold. The insurance agent, initially disinterested, suddenly became meticulous, noting every detail I had documented. Felony theft, confirmed in writing with timestamps, and admission proof irrefutable. Meanwhile, Ilara's messages escalated to frantic pleas, excuses, and threats. Her sense of control, so violently asserted the previous night, crumbled under the weight of her own actions. And I, strangely, felt nothing but calm. Every step was calculated. Every move she made merely confirmed that walking away had been the correct decision. By evening, a call came from an unknown number. It was a police officer, professional calm, confirming that my apartment was fully under my name and that Ilara had no right to demand access or money. Relief washed over me, tempered by the surreal realization that the drama, the humiliation, the manipulation had all been theater one I refused to star in. Ilara, stripped of leverage, became desperate. Every text was a mixture of fear, anger, and denial, and every attempt to twist the narrative only tightened the noose of her own accountability. I watched from a distance, patient, detached, knowing that the next move belonged to her and to the law. Should she continue to resist, as the city lights flickered on, reflecting off the ornate facades of Le Jardin Ica, I sat back in the quiet of my brother's apartment. The taste of the previous night's wine and laughter still lingered in my mind, but it was now just a memory, a cautionary tale of entitlement and misplaced expectations. I realized something profound. Love, respect, and worth cannot be measured by indulgence or approval from those who judge through wealth and performance. And in this newfound clarity, I felt a freedom I hadn't known in years. Sunday arrived with an oppressive heat that seemed to mirror the tension still clinging to my chest. My phone remained mostly silent until 5 p.m., the deadline I had set. Nothing, not a text, not a call. The silence was deafening, a confirmation of Ilara's inability or unwillingness to act responsibly. I sat at my brother's kitchen table, the polished oak surface reflecting the late afternoon sunlight, and let the calm settle over me. Her inaction was telling. It was a surrender, albeit a reluctant one. I called the non-emergency police line shortly after 5:30. My voice was steady as I explained the situation. Engagement ring, $14,500, documented proof, her admission in writing, and her refusal to return it. The officer, professional and efficient, noted every detail, issuing a case number for felony theft. I hung up, feeling the strangest mix of triumph and exhaustion. It wasn't just about the ring, it was about standing up to manipulation, entitlement, and the distortion of respect and loyalty into a currency I would never accept. Meanwhile, the fallout extended beyond the immediate confrontation. Alara's father, a retired diplomat named Philippe, contacted me after the police confirmed the legal standing of the situation. His voice, a mixture of fury and disbelief, laid bare the consequences of her actions. The $832 dinner fiasco, her refusal to return the ring, and the chaos inflicted on her social circle. Apparently, Camilla's father, a prominent lawyer himself, had been dragged into the mess when Camilla demanded reimbursement for the extravagant dinner. The ripple effect of entitled behavior became painfully clear. Financial entanglements, damaged friendships, and a humbling lesson in accountability. By late afternoon, Felipe arrived personally to return the ring. I met him in the lobby of my building, the little velvet box in his hand, Alara sitting silently in his car. Her mascara-streaked face told a story of panic, embarrassment, and perhaps the faintest hint of regret. Philippe, cold and controlled, handed me the box with no words of reconciliation, allegedly the silent authority of someone who understood both the law and the gravity of the situation. I held the box briefly, feeling the weight of months of planning, hope, and betrayal in my hands. For years condensed into a velvet container, a symbol of choices, character, and consequences. Ilara's pleas were soft, desperate. I was scared, Leo. I didn't know what to do. I looked at her, and all the warmth I once felt had dissipated. "You made your choices," I said calmly, my voice free of anger, tinged only with finality. "And now you must face them." I turned, walked back to the elevator, and didn't look back. The ring was mine again, but more importantly, my life was mine again. The lessons were clear. Character cannot be bought, respect cannot be coerced, and entitlement, left unchecked, will always collapse under its own weight. Outside, the city glittered with its usual facade of elegance and indulgence, oblivious to the quiet victories of integrity and reason unfolding within its streets. In the days that followed, the ripples of the dinner debacle continued to unfold, though I watched from a comfortable distance. Alara, once poised and confident, now faced the reality of her choices. Her job in event curation had evaporated after she failed to show up for a critical Monday presentation. The panic from the pawn shop fiasco having consumed her focus entirely. Her finances were a mess. She owed her father $3,500 for covering the fallout of her friends' irresponsible spending. Camilla, Sabine, and Lysandra, once pillars of social dominance in our circle, had fractured under the weight of entitlement. Camilla's father, furious over the misuse of his credit card and involvement in potential police action, cut her off completely. Sabine and Lysandra ghosted Camilla, leaving her scrambling to sell designer bags online to make rent. Meanwhile, I returned to my routine, but with a new sense of freedom. My apartment, my finances, my life untouched by the drama, untouched by the manipulation, and under my full control. I reflected on the absurdity of the past weekend. A simple dinner had become a gauntlet testing my worth. Yet in refusing to participate, I had asserted my boundaries and protected my future. I realized that true character is revealed not by submission to social pressure, but by integrity in moments of challenge. Alara reached out one last time, her messages a mix of anger, desperation, and feigned reasoning. She claimed she had been scared, that she acted out of panic, that I had humiliated her. I read them once, then archived them. There was no negotiation, no reconciliation. The engagement was over. The ring, a tangible reminder of the lessons learned, was back in my possession. Its value was less than the experience it represented, the clarity of understanding what respect, loyalty, and self-worth truly meant. The final blow to her social circle came quickly. News of the pawnshop incident and the unpaid $832 dinner spread quietly through mutual acquaintances. Reputation, so carefully curated by designer labels and exclusive dinners, faltered when faced with documented entitlement and poor judgment. I learned that actions driven by selfishness and performance collapse when exposed to accountability. For Alara, the consequences were personal, financial, and social. For me, the aftermath brought relief, clarity, and a restored sense of agency. Sitting in my apartment one evening, a glass of aged whiskey in hand, I reflected on the past weeks. The city outside glittered, as always, full of performative elegance and artificial civility, yet inside, I felt something the city could never offer: peace. The lesson was profound, yet simple worthiness cannot be measured in currency or gestures dictated by others. It is lived through choices, demonstrated in character, and preserved by. And as I raised my glass to the quiet night, I understood that sometimes the most expensive lessons cost very little, but their value is immeasurable. I was free, the ring safely returned, and the drama resolved not through confrontation, but through calm, calculated integrity. And in that freedom, I finally felt the weight of 4 years lifted, leaving only clarity, resolve, and a future of my own making.